Welcome back to Hideaway, everyone. It's good to see you guys. It's 8 a.m. here in Jacksonville, and we're doing some reptile feedings this morning. Hope everybody's having a great day today. And thank you guys again for all your support and love on social media accounts, especially YouTube. So we're going to continue on the series of this morning, introducing you guys to the reptile room and all the reptiles inside. So we'll stick to the Chelonian species this morning, and we'll catch these guys as they eat. So I'll introduce you guys to Squirt and Tank. So I hope you guys enjoy.
I should have been a cowboy. I should have learned to rope and ride.
Alright everyone, so this is Squirt and Tank's basic setup here. So on the left side here we have actual ceramic heat emitter, which kind of keeps our enclosure about 80 degrees. It goes off during the daytime, and then over here, during the daytime we keep their basking in UVB bulb, and that's kind of what gives them temperatures to bask in the morning. So these guys come from the Sahel in Africa, right? So these guys are kind of they live on the edge of the desert more so than the desert. Everybody calls them a desert tortoise. That's not necessarily true, right? So especially when they're hatchlings like this, they're not a true desert tortoise species. And especially when they're hatchlings, a lot of the time what people need to realize is they're kept in a relatively damp enclosure, right? So these guys will only come out of the burrow every once in a while, so they're kept in a pretty damp enclosure. We keep them about 60 to 80% humidity. So you can see Tank trying to come out of the food bowl there, and then there's a Squirt pretty much kind of getting his temperature on. So they'll regulate right outside of this area, right? So right underneath the basking bulb is about 100 degrees. So it'll be about 95 to 105 degrees. So right where he's at is probably that 95 degree range variant. So that's why they stay right on the outside, to kind of get their body temperature up. Like I said, it's 8 a.m. this morning, so these guys are in here, and they're getting their body temperature up, trying to get them to feed. So Tank was feeding this morning. Obviously, you see we got their water set up. Got some poopies in there. And then we have this little hide over here, right? So if they need to thermoregulate, one of the biggest things that we talk about in this community is allowing these species to thermoregulate on their own. So we have this little hide box over here, and we have it with some sphagnum moss that we dampen every morning. So it's important for them to be able to thermoregulate whenever they get too hot in this enclosure. This enclosure, I never really let it get below 80 degrees, right? So whatever temperature in here is the temperature that they need to maintain out in their natural environment. So we'll do their species card. The African Spurred tortoise, or Centrochelis sulcata. Their range is the southern edge of the Sahara Desert, that's known as the Sahel, and their conservation status is considered vulnerable. Now, the only reason, right, that these guys are considered vulnerable is because a lot of people in that region of the country actually use this tortoise species when they get to their max length and width, as well as weight, for bushmeat, actually. So these guys are a food item for humans in that region of Africa. So that is the biggest reason that they're considered vulnerable. Not a whole lot of them you see in the wild. If you actually go to that area, I don't know, I've never actually been to the Sahel myself. It's kind of one of the places that I would love to go, is the sub-Saharan desert, and go ahead and check these guys out. So these guys can weigh up to 80 to 100 pounds when they get big and full size. So you can see Tank here looking at some food. So what I feed them primarily is a mix of greens. We have some collard greens, we have turnip greens, as well as some hibiscus leaves and a little bit of cactus in there. So we kind of try to give them a varied diet, and every once in a while we'll dust with calcium just to make sure these guys are getting their proper intake. One of the things we do with this species is soak them from time to time, right? So it's kind of hard to exactly mimic the environment that they're in when they're inside of a true burrow as a hatchling, before they come out, before they're about a yearling, and they're ready to go and actually take on the world as a yearling tortoise, which is much bigger than these two. These guys are about 6 to 7 months old. So there you go, you can see Squirt. Or you can see Tank, I should say, rather, eating right there. He's a great eater for us. There he goes, eating some his turnip greens there. And then Squirt just regulating. So to mimic this environment, what we try to do is we soak them every day, right? So I have these 2 containers, and we'll go ahead and fill those with water. We'll fill it with warm water, and then we'll put some ReptiSafe in there so that it's safe for them, and they'll soak in there for about 15 to 20 minutes. And we do this every day. We try to do it every day. everybody says, oh, it's a sub-Saharan tortoise, you know, they don't really need a whole lot of water. But like I was talking about, these guys really don't venture out as hatchlings because they realize that they're kind of vulnerable, right? So they won't venture out and they'll stay in that humid environment. So we need to keep the humidity relatively high because these guys are well hydrated inside the burrow. So because they're so well hydrated inside the burrow, you know, we need to soak them to kind of mimic that environment. So we'll go ahead and soak them. I'll show you guys what that looks like. Guys, I like to keep them inside the enclosure, right? Picking up tortoises when they're about this small kind of stresses them out. If you think about what they're doing in the wild, if something's picking them up in the wild, it's probably eating them. So you kind of want to limit the amount that you're picking these species up when they're hatchlings, right? Sometimes, yeah, you got to do physical examinations, but you want to limit the amount that you're actually picking up small Sulcata tortoises like this. And I know Tank is eating right now, so I'll kind of let him finish up. But I'll show you, I'll add some ReptiSafe to the water here to make sure we get all the chlorine out of the water, because human beings, right, we drink natural chlorinated water. So we'll go ahead and put Squirt in there, and you'll see he'll kind of start to prop up as soon as he gets into this warm bath. So he'll submerge his head a little bit, and you'll see that warm bath just instantly wakes him up, right? So we'll take Tank out here, and like I said, you want to limit the amount that you're picking these guys up. So carried some turnip greens in there with them, right? And so one of the things I like to do is, even though we're soaking them, is I like to get the back of the shell just to make sure they're getting a good soak. And it's a slight dunk, right? Just a slight dunk, making sure the whole shell is dunked in. These guys are, you know, soaking pretty well. So they'll sit in there for about 15 minutes. You can see how much Squirt actually livens up. So he was thermoregulating, kind of taking a nap. These guys really do sleep a lot. You got to understand, you know, it takes a lot of energy, even as such small tortoises that they are, right? That shell, comparable to their actual legs, if you can see how small Squirt's actual legs are, you know, they got to prop up that shell. And that would be the equivalent of, you know, with me or you, with our ankles propping up, you know, 100-pound weight, like every single time, you know, that they pick themselves up. Because that weight is dense, and they're using 4 points of contact on the ground to lift it up. That is a relatively short base. So when these guys grow up, they're pretty lean, right? Very little fat on their bodies, pretty lean species, very strong, you know, so just keep that in mind when you see these guys. So they enjoy their little soaks, and they'll just kind of sit there. A lot of the times too, what they'll do, you can see Tank kind of pushing his head back there. What he's doing is he's pushing out urates, he's pushing out poop. And since tortoises don't have the same kind of body structure we do, right, with involuntary or voluntary muscle movements, they have to use their natural body to kind of get their urates out, as well as their waste. And turtles will often do that, whether they're digesting food, or, you know, they're trying to prop themselves up, or you know, relieve themselves. So kind of interesting to watch them behave. You can see Tank there with his beautiful eyes, and Squirt. Hope you guys enjoyed that, looking at those sulcatas. You know, definitely one of my favorite tortoise species, weighing 80 to 100 pounds. You know, third largest tortoise species on the planet. So right now they're about 2 to 3 inches and weigh less than 50 grams. But obviously we have plans later to build some enclosures and put them in the backyard, and they'll be kind of our nature's lawnmower, if you will. Or any pet that you guys want to get ever, just make sure you're doing your research and researching the adequate husbandry and care for that specific species. Whether that's a mammal, you know, like a bunny, or it's a reptile or amphibian, you know, anything that you guys do, so that way you don't have to surrender them at some other point or donate them to a wildlife center. So doing adequate research, you know, kind of helps our hobby, and understanding husbandry and reading up on whatever animal you get helps everyone out. So kind of want to kick it back to conservation. You know, I love doing this at the end of videos where we tie back in the conservation piece. So you know, keep it light, keep it fun, but obviously conservation fun, right? Alright guys, one of the ways you can conserve this beautiful species, the African Spurred tortoise, or Sulcata tortoise as its name goes by in the pet trade, is to actually donate to the United Nations. They have this thing called World Heritage Sites, and there's a whole list of World Heritage Sites that you can donate to protect. So one of those heritage sites is called the Arentenary Natural Reserve, which is actually in the Sahel in Africa, and this expands across a large portion of that country, so that way they can conserve the land and conserve their species there. So I'll leave those links down in the description, and hope you guys can go ahead and find those. I've kind of gone through and just led you to the donate page, so that way you guys can go ahead and make a difference. Or if you want, you can support our Patreon account via the links in the description, and I can go ahead and do the hard work for you if you guys don't want to go ahead and do that. You can just contribute to the Patreon page and I'll do everything else. Like I said, here at Hideaway, one of our big things is no matter what we make, we're going to donate 10% of everything to conservation. So hope you guys enjoyed the video today. Thank you guys for stopping by, and that's going to be it for me at Hideaway. Thanks.